Luxury brands sell $5,000 handbags, $800 t-shirts, and somehow people can't get enough of it. But how do they do it, and why do we want these products so badly? And more importantly, how can you apply the same strategies to your own business even if you're not selling luxury products? So in this video, I'll break down the 5 luxury brand strategies you can use to position yourself like an expert in your field, so you can charge more and attract clients who never ask for any discounts. So let's get into it. So luxury brands don't sell shoes, bags, watches, or any type of products. They sell an identity. When someone buys a $5,000 handbag, they're not thinking, wow, amazing stitching. They're thinking, this proves I've made it in a way. I've made it in a different upper echelon of society. They're not buying products, they're buying versions of themselves. They're buying their ideal future self. People don't pay for products, they pay for who they become or who they hope to become. And this is where most businesses completely miss the mark, because no matter what you're selling, your offer isn't just about the thing you deliver. It's about the transformation it creates and what that says about the person buying it. A great example of this is Rolex. So no one buys a Rolex just to tell the time. They buy it because it says something about them, but that they're successful and that they're someone who can afford a Rolex. They're just buying the identity of someone who can afford and buy a Rolex. So the watch, in a way, the product is secondary. So instead of focusing on what you offer, your products or service, ask yourself, what kind of person does this help my client become? Because when you sell the identity behind your products or service, the transformation your client experiences, you make your offer not just about what it does, but who your client is after using it. And that's what makes your products, your offer, your service irresistible. But identity alone is not enough. To truly create desire, you also need to make that identity feel exclusive. Something only a select few can access. Which brings us to the next strategy luxury brands use to create demand, which is scarcity. Most businesses think that to grow, they need to reach more people. But luxury brands shows us that you don't need to reach more people to grow. They don't ask, how can we reach the most amount of people? They ask, how can we make this hard to get? Think about Hermes. You can walk in the store with $20,000 in cash and still be told no to buy a Birkin. It's not about the supply, because they can make more bags, they can make more products. It's about the exclusivity. And scarcity isn't a trick, it's a signal. Because when something is always available, it feels less valuable. When access is limited to a product or service, people pay attention. So with whatever you're selling, a product or service, make it exclusive or appears exclusive. And remember that people don't want access, they want exclusive access. So ask yourself now, are you signaling exclusivity or availability? When you combine identity and scarcity, your brand or company stops sounding like an option and starts sounding like an opportunity. But there's still one more piece people overlook, which is emotion. Luxury brands don't just look good, they make you feel something. And remember that emotion is the shortcut to trust. A $1,000 hoodie isn't 10 times better than a $30 one, but it makes you feel elevated, powerful, and important. And luxury isn't logical, it's emotional. And everything from the fonts they use to the store layout to the packaging reinforces that emotion. So here's a question for you. How do people feel when they experience your brand or company? Your website, your emails, your content, your videos, your pictures, they all need to create an emotion in the person who watches it. If people don't feel something, they don't trust you. And if they don't trust you, they won't buy from you. So always lead with emotion and then back it up with logic, because emotion grabs the attention and logic justifies the decision. And the fastest way to make people feel something is through story. And this is the next strategy. Luxury brands are just storytellers. That's it. They don't market what it is, they market what it means. When you buy from Chanel, you're not buying fabric, you're not buying, any type of product. You're buying, in their case, legacy, confidence, and power. You are buying a story and a role in that story. And you are a part of that story once you buy from them, but only once you buy from them. And if you haven't bought from them, you're just, watching the story from afar. You're not included in the story. And buying from them gives you a role in that story and you feel amazing about it. But before buying, they know what the story is about. They know the big why of Chanel, for example. They know the story already. And same for any type of business, in your business even. People don't just want to know what you do. They want to know why you do it. They want to connect with your perspective, your philosophy, your mission. Let's go through an example here. Let's say a woman launches a skincare brand. The products are good, clear ingredients, great packaging, but it's just another option on the shelf. Until she shares why she started it, why she started her brand. And let's say the story was that her mother was, battling cancer. During treatment, her skin became painfully sensitive, and most products she was using for her skin made it worse. So she created her own safe and healing products. But now with the story, she's not selling skincare anymore. She's selling protection, devotion, a daughter's love for her mom in every jar. And people feel that they don't just buy the product, they buy the story. They see themselves in it, they trust it. And people don't just buy from people, they buy from story they believe in. So your offer is the product, but your story is the reason they buy. Because when people believe in your why, they believe in your worth. And that belief, it changes what they're willing to pay. Which brings us to the final strategy, which is price. Most people in most businesses treat pricing like an afterthought, but luxury brands treat it like a statement. Because price does more than just reflect the value. It creates it. Your price is a filter. It attracts and repels the right people. For example, if you're attracting customers or potential customers who are always complaining or always want a discount or take forever to make a decision, you're maybe attracting the wrong people, and your pricing might be sending the wrong message. When everything in your brand or company signals premium, from your content, language, delivery, then your price should match that level. You just need to raise your standards and then raise your price to match them. Because premium clients don't want cheap. They want certainty, clarity. They want someone they trust to deliver the results. The value of what you offer, product, service, should be at least 10 times more than the price of whatever you're selling. That's why you can price your product or service anything you want, as long as you deliver 10 times more the value of the actual price. So stop trying to be affordable and start showing why you're worth it. Because when your brand, story, scarcity, and price all align, that's when premium clients start chasing you. So at the end of the day, people don't just buy products or services. They buy how those things make them feel. They want to feel confident, important, and a part of something meaningful. That's exactly what luxury brands understand, and that's why people are willing to pay way more without hesitation. And you can apply the same approaches, the same strategies to your own business, even if you're not selling luxury products. So instead of focusing on what you're selling, focus on the feeling and identity you create for your clients or customers. Tell your story in a way that connects. Show why your offer is valuable. And set a price that matches the experience you deliver. So when your brand, story, and price all line up, the right customers won't have to be chased after. They'll come to you.